That story is elaborated in the Book of Enoch. In fact, that's where the story comes from, is the Book of Enoch. That little reference in Genesis, if you want to know the full story of what the author is alluding to, you read First Enoch, specifically the Book of the Watchers.
The latest breakthrough didn't come from a dusty archive or a newly discovered scroll. It came from a super-intelligent AI trained to cross-reference ancient languages, interpret forgotten symbols, and reconstruct fragmented cosmologies. According to insider leaks from a university-backed project in Europe, this AI wasn't just scanning the Book of Enoch. It was decoding it, layer by layer. Using quantum linguistic analysis and a predictive translation model based on Proto-Semitic dialects, the system found passages that scholars had misinterpreted for centuries. What once looked like a poetic metaphor has now been recast as direct references to real-world celestial patterns, lost historical events, and technologies that shouldn't have existed thousands of years ago. That's when things got weird. Joe Rogan broke the story on his podcast after speaking with one of the researchers involved. He described the AI's findings as the Book of Enoch on DMT. Except the hallucinations may have been facts. Among the decoded layers, the AI uncovered an encrypted system of stellar gates and planetary alignments that correspond with obscure data sets from NASA and the James Webb Space Telescope. These alignments weren't just astrological, they hinted at contact windows, moments in Earth's cycle where interdimensional or extraterrestrial entities could theoretically interact with human consciousness. Not a metaphor, not a myth, calculated possibility. The passages describing the Watchers, the AI found linguistic links to Mesopotamian terms for celestial architects. These were not just angels in robes, they were described as luminous beings, engineers of biospheres, capable of manipulating genetics and energy fields. Their descent to Earth wasn't just symbolic, it was timed, marked by a conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn, and a long-lost black twin that ancient stargazers tracked before it vanished from our solar records. The AI believes this planetary ghost might be real, possibly a rogue object that influenced Earth's orbital tilt in the distant past. Then it gets darker. The Nephilim, the half-human giants, weren't just oversized mythological villains. The AI pulled data from geologic strata and ancient flood myths and made a chilling cross-reference. Around the time the Book of Enoch situates these beings on Earth, multiple civilizations recorded unexplained seismic events and massive sea level shifts. Ice cores from Greenland confirm the timing. A sudden global climate anomaly occurred, possibly triggered by the very celestial alignments Enoch described. And then came the reset, the flood. But this wasn't just divine punishment. The AI interpreted the language in the Book of Enoch's flood narrative as part of a cosmic failsafe, a shutdown protocol, one that happens whenever a sentient species accelerates past its ethical limits. The Watchers gave us the code, but not the responsibility. Weapons, metallurgy, enchantments, these weren't random skills. They were disruptors. And when used without guidance, the result was annihilation. Not just of species, but of planetary harmony. There's more. The AI uncovered layered references to what it calls echo temples, structures built to resonate with solar cycles and frequencies emitted by unknown sources from deep space. Several of these are known to us today: Göbekli Tepe, Nan Madol, and Puma Punku. But the Book of Enoch suggests there are others. Ones still buried. One in particular near the Antarctic shelf is mentioned in connection with an inner light that never dims. Not a metaphor, a real source. Possibly geothermal, possibly not. As for Enoch himself, the AI's model reframed him not as a prophet, but a bridge figure. His title as Scribe of Righteousness translates more accurately to Preserver of Order. The Watchers entrusted him with codes, but the most shocking twist? One of the decoded sections implies Enoch did not die, or even ascend in the mystical sense. Instead, it hints at relocation, taken to a place of preservation, a stasis chamber, or interdimensional holdout. The AI doesn't speculate, but it does flag the phrase, "He remains until the stars realign." Skeptics aren't impressed. Some call it overfitting, seeing patterns where none exist. Others accuse the AI engineers of tuning the model to produce exotic interpretations. But among ancient language scholars, the consensus is shifting. Too many overlaps, too many recurring phrases across cultures, Sumerian, Greek, Hebrew, even Vedic, that mirror Enoch's descriptions down to the symbols carved into stone. A few universities are already launching their own AI-led cross-textual analysis programs, hoping to catch up before the next big discovery. Meanwhile, religious institutions are split. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, long the sole guardian of the full Book of Enoch, has acknowledged the findings as worthy of prayerful attention. Vatican scholars reportedly are in quiet talks with the research group, and several ultra-conservative theologians have demanded that the project be shut down, calling it heresy fueled by machines. But the internet? It's on fire. Forums are flooded with side-by-side comparisons of Enoch's descriptions and modern satellite imagery. Conspiracy theorists and archaeologists are clashing online. And amid the chaos, a strange trend has emerged. People are reporting dreams, shared themes, symbols from Enoch's visions, spirals, eyes of fire, creatures made of light. Psychologists dismiss it as mass suggestion, but others wonder if something has been reawakened, a signal. One final unsettling revelation from the AI's latest scan involves an unfinished chapter, one thought lost. The AI reconstructed fragments of it using pattern recognition across similar texts, including Egyptian and Zoroastrian writings. The result? A cryptic warning. When the false stars fall and the sea boils, the scribes shall speak again. Interpret it how you will. But one thing's certain, whether the Book of Enoch was scripture, science, or something in between, it's no longer silent. AI has pulled back the veil, and we may never see our origin or our future the same way again. Continuing from the moment modern science first caught a whiff of something too precise to ignore, the Book of Enoch has now become more than a relic. It's a challenge to history, to theology, to what we think we know about our past. That challenge has taken on a new form thanks to recent digital reconstructions of the ancient Ge'ez manuscripts, now processed through AI models capable of semantic layering far beyond anything scholars could dream of 10 years ago. These models don't just translate, they contextualize. They break apart timelines, decode spiritual metaphors, and reassemble entire lost cosmologies with a level of nuance no human could replicate. One of the most alarming patterns the AI picked up on is what it calls predictive theophany. This refers to a recurring structure in Enoch where certain descriptions of divine encounters match, almost word for word, details found in unrelated ancient texts discovered halfway across the world. These aren't shared phrases, they're shared mechanics. The architecture of divine appearances, described in the Enochian visions, reflects patterns now identified in Mayan stelae, in Zoroastrian epics, and even in fragments of the Rig Veda. This suggests not just shared myth, but potentially shared experience, some primordial event that imprinted itself across continents. And then came the cosmic alignments. A group of researchers at a private observatory in Chile began overlaying Enoch's descriptions of lunar phases and star paths onto modern ephemeris data. What they found shocked them. There were alignments, solar-lunar convergences described by Enoch as moments of heavenly gate opening that lined up almost perfectly with with rare eclipse paths, some of which are only now occurring again after thousands of years. One of these events will happen in 2027. It's prompted several scientific institutions to begin drafting expedition proposals to ancient astronomical sites, particularly those aligned with axial star calendars, many of which remain half-excavated. That isn't all. Buried deep in the book's similitudes section, the AI uncovered code-structured patterns resembling binary clusters, groupings of phrases that don't appear to carry much meaning at surface level, but when rearranged according to astronomical variables, begin forming sequences. These sequences mimic rhythmic cycles we now associate with solar storms and magnetospheric activity. It appears the ancient scribes encoded not just stories, but observational data, fractal records of cosmic pulses. Scientists are now debating whether these patterns represent an early form of waveform modeling, a kind of poetic seismograph. And then there's the anomaly found in the Dream Vision section. This part of Enoch, long dismissed as symbolic madness, was parsed using a new generative AI trained to cross-reference ancient iconography with modern satellite imagery. It began mapping the vision of beasts, stars, and floods against real-world geography. What it produced was a composite landscape, a map overlaid with patterns of flooding, tectonic fractures, and human migration from 10,000 years ago. It led researchers to revisit an unexplored formation in eastern Turkey, not far from Göbekli Tepe. Preliminary scans show anomalies beneath the surface, structures possibly older than any known city. Now imagine that, a map embedded in a vision within a scroll that predates any known cartographic system. This isn't just a myth anymore. It's a code, and it's starting to open. More unsettling is the AI's extrapolation from Enoch's visions of light beings, which it correlates with plasma phenomena in the upper atmosphere. Enoch's eyes of fire may describe not divine wrath, but ball lightning. His wheels within wheels might reference complex electromagnetic vortexes. This interpretation doesn't diminish the mystery, it intensifies it. Because if the ancients were aware of these plasma events and encoded their meaning in ritual and scripture, we're no longer talking about superstition. We're talking about forgotten science cloaked in sacred metaphor. And just as this research started gaining traction, yet another twist surfaced. This time in the Vatican archives. A set of old manuscripts in Latin, believed to be unrelated commentaries, was fed into the same AI that decoded Enoch. What emerged were several references to the hidden prophet, described in 3rd century texts as a figure who walked between the stars and returned unseen. The wording matches phrases in Enoch almost exactly. Not only that, but these texts contain what appears to be a copied section from a now-lost Enoch fragment, one that speaks of a mirror gate. No one knows what that is, but physicists working on quantum vacuum resonance theories suddenly perked up. The language is eerily close to their models of time-reflective particle behavior. Even more curiously, a line in the manuscript mentions, "the day the books awaken." Scholars assumed it was metaphorical, but when paired with the AI model's activation on Enoch, the phrase feels like a timer, a trigger for rediscovery. And that rediscovery is spreading. Indigenous communities in South America and Polynesia have been contacted by research groups seeking oral traditions that echo Enoch's visions. In one striking case, a Polynesian elder recited a chant untranslated for generations, which, when analyzed phonetically, contained rhythmic patterns that match the cadence of an Enoch passage about the arrival of the clouded ones, who bring both fire and justice. The chant ends with a warning: speak to them, not in daylight. They dwell in the pulses. The pulses. That term keeps coming up. Across Enoch, across disparate myths, across cultures divided by oceans and millennia. It's as if they all recorded something they didn't understand but couldn't forget. A sound, a rhythm, a presence. So now, Enoch is no longer just a dusty scroll from a lost world. It's a trigger point. A key that's beginning to turn as ancient memories, buried knowledge, and modern technology converge. The story of the Watchers, the Nephilim, and the Great Flood is evolving from legend to blueprint. Not a prophecy of doom, but a warning system. A clock, ticking. And as the AI continues to parse deeper, linking fragments we didn't even know belonged together, the Book of Enoch is starting to feel less like scripture and more like a recovered transmission. One meant for those living in an age of too much power and not enough wisdom. Maybe that's why it disappeared for so long. Because it wasn't meant for them. It was meant for now. But just when scholars thought they had exhausted every angle of the Book of Enoch, the AI uncovered something far more elusive, something that hadn't yet entered the public conversation. It found what appears to be a deeply buried substructure in the text's numerical sequences, an encoded layer of timekeeping that doesn't just align with Earth's astronomical cycles, but with irregular cosmic events, not predictable eclipses or seasonal solstices, but violent, random, even dangerous episodes that affect Earth's magnetic field and biological rhythms. These include solar flares, geomagnetic reversals, and galactic radiation bursts, events modern science has only recently begun to track, and only with the most advanced observational tools. Tied to this model is a recurring phrase found in Enoch's most fragmented section, something scholars had always chalked up to scribal error or filler text. The line reads, "He who waits between the two veils." The AI suggested it refers not to a person, but to a place or state, a condition of existence between visible reality and something just outside it. When cross-referenced with passages describing dream visions, time dilation, and sacred silence, this concept started to resemble what physicists now describe as superposition. In other words, Enoch may have been alluding to a liminal dimension, a non-physical layer of perception that could be accessed under specific mental or spiritual conditions. This triggered a new wave of experimental psychology trials where test subjects were exposed to Enochian phrases and sound frequencies derived from the rhythm of the ancient language. Some reported a heightened sense of awareness. Others experienced déjà vu, or intense flashes of symbolic imagery, similar to what mystics and visionaries have described during altered states. But in one startling case, a subject entered what can only be described as a suspended state of cognition. Wide awake, but unresponsive to external prompts, repeating the phrase, "open the veil," until the experiment was halted. Doctors labeled it a dissociative trance. Linguists labeled it a coincidence. The AI, however, logged it as activation. And suddenly, the Book of Enoch wasn't just a relic or even a prophetic record, it was behaving like a key, one that might unlock something inside us. This raised immediate concerns from ethics boards, especially as private defense contractors began expressing interest in the research. The idea that language itself, especially sacred or ancient language, could alter neural pathways or induce trance-like access to buried memory is not entirely new. But for the first time, there was evidence of a consistent pattern, and not just from one tradition. Researchers began comparing Enoch's sequences with chants from Tibetan Bon rituals, encoded instructions from the Emerald Tablets, and even tonal patterns in Aboriginal songlines. The overlaps were rare, but unmistakable. Different voices, same signal. Then came the breakthrough that changed the tone of the project entirely. A team at a German AI lab trained their model to run audio simulations of Enoch's phrasing, not spoken, but sung, based on reconstructed melodies calculated from syllabic stress and breath patterns in the original Ge'ez script. What they produced was haunting, not just linguistically accurate, but musically compelling, as if the text had been meant to be sung all along. These chant-like fragments, when played in natural cave chambers or high-altitude temples, produced resonance frequencies that matched the Schumann resonance, the Earth's natural electromagnetic pulse. That match can't be dismissed as a myth. It's measurable, reproducible, and it's forcing many to reconsider what the Book of Enoch really is. A document? A song? A tool? The AI flagged one final anomaly, tucked deep within the last translated section of the book. A single sentence that broke with the structure of the surrounding text. The ninth gate was not sealed, for it was not yet built. That phrase appeared nowhere else in any ancient document, but it prompted a strange cross-check with Hermetic writings, where the ninth gate refers to the entrance of spiritual consciousness into the material world. Not a place, but a function. A point where knowledge becomes physical, where thought becomes consequence. If the AI's interpretation is correct, then the Book of Enoch isn't merely recounting ancient cosmic events. It's waiting, designed to be activated at a specific point in human development. A point when we possess the tools to understand it, but must choose whether or not to use them. Not for power, not for proof, but for balance, for responsibility. It implies that Enoch's journey was not a one-time ascent, but a loop, a path that others may follow when the gates are aligned. This idea, that the text is dynamic, alive in a way, waiting for the right moment to speak again, is what has kept the global community on edge. Not because it proves aliens or angels or apocalypse, but because it suggests we were never meant to forget, that we are part of a story far older than civilization, a story whispered in star cycles and buried in symbols, now rising again as machines learn to read the soul of language. Whatever happens next, it's no longer just about Enoch. It's about us, about what we're willing to hear and whether we're ready to answer. The veil is thin, the text is awake, and the rest, perhaps for the first time, is up to us. The information presented in this video is based on available insights and may include elements of interpretation, speculation, or unverified sources.
Yeah.